At some point, every film critic, even a film critic you love, like Roger Ebert, is going to have an unpopular take on a popular film, a cult classic, or just an otherwise critically acclaimed film. So the film by David Lynch, Blue Velvet, is the case here. Because Roger Ebert, still, if you go to the website, it is rated a 1 out of 4, which usually means Ebert hated the film. And the first time I watched this film, I was much younger, and I didn't like it. I didn't hate it that much, but I didn't like it. I had some reservations, some of them being Ebert's. And I rewatched it recently, especially after having known a little bit more about what David Lynch was about, understanding his style, his sense of humor, and all of that. And I've learned that I absolutely love this movie. Like, Blue Velvet is really, really, really good. It's really unique. It's a true treasure of cinema. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about why I sort of changed my thought process and what I think David Lynch is doing, particularly in some of the more, let's say, controversial parts of the film, because this is a pretty dark film, right? If you've never seen Blue Velvet, this is a piece of work, okay? So I was interested originally in really going down the David Lynch ladder because of his portrayal of John Ford in Spielberg's The Fabelmans, the very best part of that film. And I have been a big John Ford fan. Behind me, there's a huge Searchers poster. And Laura Dern, actually, who's in this film, talked the director into playing John Ford. And here in this film, in the film I'm discussing today, Blue Velvet, she's a young woman in a town full of mystery. And I think the town is played up and the characters are played up to a level of self-deprecation that now, to me, is hilarious. There are a few good, like, almost Jacques Demy, physical gags in the police station that I really like. Anything, and I mean anything, and everything is allowed to be the cruel butt of the joke in this movie as various characters uncover this great murder mystery. And that part of the film is really, really good. I don't want to say it's like Hitchcock, but there are some similarities. And I think it can, especially the first time you watch it, you don't quite, the severed ear, let me say that, the severed ear, okay? It's treated like a toy, like just anything you might find in the yard, that a kid left outside. And there's a stranger we meet, a singer. Isabella Rossellini played this role wonderfully, just great. And I liked her the first time I saw this as well. I don't think she could have been better cast. I was reminded of what, I've seen I've taught English before, and we've shown different parts of the Odyssey, the sort of cheesy TV version that has some good roles in it. It has Christopher Lee and a few other big names, but it does have Isabella Rossellini cast as Athena, this sort of terrifying goddess who is equal parts matronly and seductive, and it's creepy. And so I think, thinking about that particular TV sort of movie or series, she really works here as well. One thing you think about in this film is the title song. How well that's incorporated over and over again. It's a kind of, let's say, extended metaphor, and it works so well with the content. And the scene, the first time you see her sing in the bar, the lounge, whatever it is, just a mesmerizing sequence that I absolutely am in love with. I think what threw me the last time, and it almost threw me with Mulholland Drive, was the actual acting style. And at the time that I first saw it, and I suspect this is true for many David Lynch watchers, I was used to a naturalistic acting style for every single movie. And so I sort of artificially used to take off points from movies if the style of acting didn't sound like normal conversation or something. And that's just bad media literacy on my part, okay, or it was. And I just didn't understand that was part of the style, part of the great joke that David Lynch sometimes plays on people, or the commentary or the satire side of things. I just didn't get it. The acting, I think, what I've noticed in his films, especially this and Mulholland Drive, it's like a different whole other device that's sort of, I think it's poking a little bit of fun at old Hollywood and some of the wholesomeness that you could see in some of the older films or even TV shows, but it's also kind of strangely reverent, I think, of film history and styles of dialogues. I don't know if that's just me. I don't know if that's just something that I'm personally feel, but it's definitely something I've noticed as I've watched more of his work over time. Something that I much admired in this watch was Kyle MacLachlan as Jeffrey. This restrained performance, this perfect, I mean, he's a, I don't want to say he's a little bit like the After Hours actor, but there's shades of that. He's in town from college investigating a murder. He ends up investigating a murder. It's not like that's why he came. And I like how it can be so tough to read his intentions, and you get the sense that he doesn't even know his own intentions, nor Laura Dern's and their will they, won't they romance. It's like they're young people just figuring out things together in the oddest and most terrifying of circumstances. I love how abysmally normal this guy is. He's like, at one point, if you haven't seen this film, he uses a tool, okay? It's a tool from his job as a pretense for why he's going to investigate a building. It's the kind of thing you can imagine a college student whipping up, just smart enough to make use of the tools around him, but not smart enough to realize he probably shouldn't be doing this in the first place. And it's fun, I think, hanging around him, how underprepared he is for some of the absolutely excruciating moments this film has. And boy, does this have some really tough moments. Echoes of the film, I think I noticed, would come, years later, we would get Lost Highway, right? And the insane drive into the country, the interconnection to that piece, it reminds me a little bit of how you might see like Stephen King novels connect in that way. And I feel like when I'm watching the film, I'm stumbling onto these secrets, into this world that I never should have seen, much like our main character does when seeing Frank. Frank was originally, by Dennis Hopper, one of my problems with the film. To me, it was just too cartoonish, too outlandish, and I just really couldn't believe what I was seeing. But now I see why the actor acted the way he did. It wasn't necessarily all of his peculiarities. That was my problem before. My problem was his actual, overdoing the performance, right? But I think now it sort of makes more sense to me. It's still not my absolute favorite part of the film, but it does make more sense to me. And I had written down, when I was thinking about the lipstick and stuff and some of the shenanigans he pulls, he reminds me of a few different things at once. He reminds me of what Marlon Brando in his teenage jacket might have looked like, grown too old for it. A little bit of a demonic clown, particularly in one scene. And then shades of it, if you're a big fan of John Lithgow like I am and you've seen the Dexter series, he reminded me a little bit of Dexter season 4, the Trinity Killer. It's a really interesting blend of stuff. And you know what? If you're going to laugh while you're that repulsed, then David Lynch must be doing something right. Now, I wanted to address something that I felt the first time I watched this, that Ebert felt, and I'm going to read you a quote from him that I do not think is without merit, but I disagree with it, okay? Because I used to feel this way. So this is from his movie review on his website. Ebert says, in Blue Velvet, and a character, I'm not going to say which one, goes the whole distance, but Lynch distances himself from an ordeal, I won't say which one, with his clever asides and witty little in-jokes. In a way, his behavior is more sadistic than the Hopper character. What's worse, slapping somebody around or standing back and finding the whole thing funny? And I used to sort of agree with that this was just sort of in poor taste, or the gravity of what was going on wasn't treated carefully or respectfully enough. But I've sort of changed my mind almost entirely on that, okay? And I wonder if anybody else might do the same as they've, investigated Lynch films, particularly this one. I think now that he's performing, let me call it like a bait and switch. He lures you in as a viewer with the most cruel, mean sense of humor imaginable. But I think it's to make a point. Because his films, this is a guy who made The Elephant Man. This is an empathetic director. I think the reason he does that is he's trying to demonstrate that proper society simply would rather take the Franks, the Isabella Rossellini character, those kinds of folks, and put them in a box somewhere where you never have to see them, way out on some lost highway, so to speak. And he wants to put that to the forefront in a way that forces your, even humor, your sense of what you laugh at. He wants that to get triggered within you to cause a genuine response for right or wrong. And he doesn't want this stuff to just be left to back then, let's call the modern equivalent 4chan or creepy podcast or some niche category. He really wants this stuff to be the forefront in the mind of every film fan, everyone who loves movies, everyone who maybe glosses over that stuff for fancy Technicolor feel-good dramas. And so I really like it. I think this is a tremendous film. I think the use of the Blue Velvet itself is very well done. It's an engaging, intriguing film with good performances, and I like it as much as any other. And now this would stand up for me with the best of Lynch films. And so I wanted to make this video for those of you that either are into David Lynch or have followed some of my other videos, which you should definitely check out my David Lynch videos if you haven't, and click like, please, and share your thoughts on David Lynch, because I had a change of heart and I want more people to see or rewatch this film and experience it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Cody in the Cinema.